I guess I start. So my name is Isabel, and thank you for being here today, early in the morning. Let me start by introducing myself and giving you a brief overview of my career history. So as I said earlier, my name is Isabel Nyo, and I graduated with a Bachelor and Master of Computer Science from the University of Wollongong. I've been working in the technology industry since I started my career about 15 years ago. So my first job was a web developer at a small technology agency in the West Sydney. And over the past 15 years, I've got sort of similar but slightly different job title like web developer, software engineer, software developer. And in the last few years, I was a startup CTO, and now I'm a software engineering manager at Atlassian, which is a company that most of you would probably know. So Atlassian is a company that produces software products for software team like Jira Service Desk, Confluence, and Bamboo, and things like that. And my journey to management is actually not unusual, but not something that I've planned. So I've considered myself to be entrepreneurial, so I've always thought that I one day work for myself than to climb the corporate ladder, or so to speak. But at one point in my career years ago, I found that I really enjoy mentoring junior developer and helping them achieve their career goals and do their life work and stuff like that. And I found that maybe this is something that I want to explore further. And also the other reason is because I found that I was making a lot more impact than I've ever made as a developer. So long story short, I spoke to my manager, applied for a team lead role, and then now I'm an engineering manager. And the rest, as they say, is a history. And outside of work, I like to read, write, and learn continuously. And you can say I'm a little bit addicted to technology or memes. So you see a lot of memes today throughout the session, and I hope you enjoy them. And when I'm not looking at memes, or even sometime when I'm looking at memes, I like to spend time with my family, especially being silly with my 6-year-old daughter. So that was me in a nutshell, but now it's your turn. I like to know a little bit about you, so I'm gonna ask you to show hand for these questions. So can I see a show of hand for those who are developers here? Team lead or technical manager? Or those who aspire to become people manager or team lead? Not many. So I hope to change your perception of what a team lead is with my talk today. And those who didn't put their hand up, I hope you'll be entertained as well. So regardless of where you are and who you are and what you aspire to be, I like you to imagine this. So imagine that you are a superstar developer. And if you are already a developer, or if you are a superstar developer, you don't need to imagine. Anyway, imagine that you are a superstar developer. As a developer or a superstar developer, you wrote elegant code, you understood how things were put together behind the scenes, and you are the go-to person for the organization code base. And because of that, this is what happened next. So you got promoted. You got a promotion, and this is what happened. And why is that? Because being promoted to an engineering leader is not actually a step up or a career progression. It's actually a lateral separate track. And it's a completely different job altogether, in my opinion. So the saying about what made you successful in your previous role won't necessarily work in your new role couldn't be more right. So as a superstar developer, and being promoted to an engineering leader, how do you survive and then thrive? So today I'll be sharing with you everything that I've learned in the past few years of my career as an engineering leader, and all the challenges that I've faced, because I like you to know that it's not always easy, but it is possible, and my strategy for how to not only be an effective engineering leader, but also to enjoy my job. And remember, it doesn't have to be horrible or hard. So let me start with my struggle, or rather the challenges that I faced in my early year as an engineering leader. And you can imagine that these are the newly promoted engineering leaders. And I've mentored a few engineering leaders who said the first few months that they became an engineering leader, they had really bad time and they cry every day or every week and things like that. And this is actually normal. So, I say it's not horrible or hard, but it's because as with human nature, change is a bit difficult. So when you become an engineering leader from a superstar developer, then you will face some struggle or challenges or some things that you don't necessarily expect. So you might probably be wondering, how did I survive and then thrive? So I like to share with you some of the struggle. And the first struggle that I had was that I like to code, and I took great pleasure in creating stuff. So when I first became a tech lead, I found that I didn't have so much time to code anymore because I'd be busy with attending meetings and creating sprint and planning for the sprint and estimating story and dealing with or working together with product manager and designer and other people in the company. And then when I got promoted again and became an engineering leader, my time for coding became non-existent because I was busy with coaching people, hiring people, vendor management, and other activities that require me to be away from my desk, and I just don't have enough time, or I just didn't have enough time or enough hours in the day to really sit down and concentrate on coding or solving problem anymore. So that was me 10 years ago, but right now, in my job, I'd be running around and not actively coding on the computer. And the second struggle that I had was that I consider myself to be technically competent, and I took great pride in my technical ability. And if you are a developer, you can probably relate. For us, technical ability or technical skill is a craft, and we are very proud of it. But I realized that as I started working with more people across the industry and across different departments, my technical skill and ability become not as important. What was more important then was to be able to explain the technical details in a way that non-technical audience understand and get buy-in for. And the third struggle that I had was that I had worked in technology all my career, so I've been working in technical industry even before I finished my uni, and I've seen firsthand how technology is always changing and advancing. So I was afraid that one day my technical skill will become obsolete if I didn't keep up with it. This picture actually says, I was worried that 10 or 20 years from now on, people were talking to me about some cutting-edge technology, and I will have no idea what it is about. So let me give you an example. A few days ago, someone in my team was talking about tree shaking in JavaScript, and the first picture that came to mind was someone on the tree and actually shaking the tree, but that wasn't what it is. So this was one of my fears that in like a few years from now on, I will have no idea what all these technology were about. So this was one of the struggles that I had. And the rest of the struggle were mainly to do with my personality and how my preferences. So for example, I'm an introvert and with a lot of people in technology, and being a manager requires a lot of human interaction, not necessarily just with the developer, but also with other people in different departments. And this was what I used to feel when I'm in meeting with a lot of extroverted people. And if you are an introvert, you could probably relate. I won't ask you to put your hand up on who's an introvert or not, because the last time I did this talk and I said, who is an introvert? And I got some backslash for saying that introverts are not comfortable putting their hand up. So I won't ask you to put your hand up. But this is how I used to feel, and you might probably be able to relate to. And last but not least, because I was a developer for many years, I found that sometimes it's easier to just process my own thought and get into coding than to explain my thinking to someone else. And it wasn't because I don't like to talk to other people, it was just that sometimes it's just easier to get on with it and code than to explain to others. So and when you become a team lead or a manager, you will probably spend more time explaining your thinking to other people than to actually do it yourself. So I can hear you thinking, those were some great struggle. How did I survive and then thrive? And I must have survived, because otherwise I wouldn't be here standing in front of you today talking about surviving and thriving as an engineering leader. So stay with me and trust that I tell you all the strategy on how to overcome all these struggle. And those strategy has helped me in my journey. So my first strategy is to seek first to understand. If there's anything that I truly believe in, is that we must first change ourselves and understand ourselves in order to best serve others. And this is really essential in leadership. With that in mind, and I learned a lot of things that I've learned in my developer day and changed my mindset completely about what it takes to be successful in my new role. So what are the things that we need to understand? The first in the list is your responsibility. So especially when you are being promoted to a team lead or someone a bit technical but also a people manager in the same company, you first need to understand what are the new responsibility. So find out what you are expected to achieve in your new role, and I'm pretty sure it's not to write as much code as you could or you more than you did before. It's possibly around delivering business results through technology and expanding the team capability and technology company capability. And next up, you need to understand yourself. So if you are interested in knowing about yourself and the type of person that you are, I recommend everyone to do a research about different leadership style and what kind of leader that you are and what sort of environment that you want to create for your team. And there's no one way or one sort of leadership style that's successful. There are different leadership styles, and your job is to understand which one matches you and what's the sort of environment that you want to create through your leadership style. Because the better you know about yourself, the better leader that you can become. After understanding your leadership style, you need to identify your weaknesses or development area in order to become better at your job and also to become a better person and a leader. So the way I did it is with the help of trusted people around me. I have some mentors that I really trust, and they give me good feedback and actionable feedback, and also through 360 feedback and asking feedback from people and asking for their honest opinion. So to give you an example, when I first became a manager, one of the development area that was identified for me was that I was too passionate about the technology, and sometimes I failed to articulate my ideas from a business lens. So when I was leading a project, this was when I first became a team lead, I was leading a project for refactoring a company legacy code base. And this is a dream project for all the developers. They want to rewrite everything and we want to do this. But why? So when I was assigned this project, I was really excited because I knew that this is what developers want, but it's also going to help us with scaling further and attracting new talent and things like that. But the mistake that I made was that I failed to articulate my reasoning in a way that non-technical audience understand and get buy-in for. So throughout my career, I've learned that it's important to be able to build a business case around all technical decisions, especially if you are a technical leader, and have a deep understanding of what it matters for, not just for the technology or the developer, but what it matters for the company, the top and bottom line, the culture, and the business result. And last but not least, as a leader, seek to understand your why, your value, and your non-negotiable. In other words, what do you want to be known for, and what are the things that you really care about? So for me, I care about integrity, growth, innovation, and technical excellence. Knowing these values make it easy for me to make decisions and avoid making mistakes that you would regret later. Because when you become a leader, you also become a change maker, and not everyone is going to like your decision. So it's really important to stay authentic to yourself and to stay true to yourself and to remind yourself what are your values and what are the things that you really care about. So seeking to understand yourself is a continuous effort. So even now I've been a leader for quite a few years, I still do this exercise every day about finding out about my responsibility, my leadership style, my value, and things like that. Not necessarily because my value has changed over time, but it's a good reminder for me to stay true to myself and to continuously improve and to be more aware of myself every day. So the second strategy that I have is to really understand that people don't equal to code. And when you see this, you say, of course I know. But what I mean by that, allow me to explain on what I mean by that. And I think this is really important for engineering and technical leader, because we can't always expect people to be always logical. So when you are a developer, you know that when you execute some sort of code, then it's expected to produce certain result. But it's not always true for people. Even for developer, We can't expect everyone to think the same. We can't expect everyone to be logical, and we can't expect everyone to act according to our pre-assumption or preferences. So after all, human beings are not algorithms. One of the reasons why I think technical people often make bad leaders to start with is they think logically and sometimes too logically. So the first thing that I encourage all the new leaders to do is to listen actively. And someone once asked me, what do you mean by listening actively? Does it mean you are being active when you are listening? It's actually far from that. Listening actively means listen with the intent to understand rather than the intent to respond. So when you are listening to someone, look at their facial expression, look at their body language, look at the things that they might not necessarily be saying. So it's really important because sometimes when you go into one-on-one or meetings with developer, you are looking at your computer, but you are listening. But then the bad thing is that you miss their facial expression, and what they are saying might not necessarily be what they are meaning. So it's very important to listen actively. And the second one is to have an empathy. Having an empathy means putting yourself in the shoes of others and understanding their point of view. So I'd like to give you an example here. Does anyone know who is the most empathetic leader of all times? It's a lady. No? So she's Mother Teresa. So everyone know Mother Teresa, yeah? So she is a very kind and caring woman who decided to devote her whole life to help the poor. And it wasn't because she was poor herself. She was just being very empathetic. It was because she was empathetic and she felt an incredible sense of empathy for the poor and suffering that she decided to do something about it. And I think it's a very important lesson to give here, or it's a very important example to give, because I've learned that even though we may all be technical people and developers, we have got different perspective on things. That's because we grew up in different environment, we were brought up differently, and we have different way of thinking, and it's all okay. So for example, I'm currently hiring about 20 people for my team, and if I hire people who are exactly like me, it's going to take me a long time. So I'm a female in technology. It's not very easy to find. I like the color pink. I like country music and all these things. If I were to, and I'm an introvert, so if I were to find someone who is exactly like me for my team, because I think, okay, then I can be more empathetic, then it's not going to work. So it's okay to have all these differences, but having an empathy means putting yourself in the shoes of others. You don't necessarily have to be exactly like them, or you don't even have to like them, but you have to understand them. And this is important because as a leader, when you have an empathy and when you treat your people with care and respect, then they will generally go an extra mile because they are more effective, collaborative, productive, and they are happier at their job. And the third one is to provide coaching. And coaching is part of really understanding people. So as engineer, developer, and technical people, we are used to solving problems. If there's a problem, or if someone comes to you with a problem, you are automatically starting to think, what are the solutions that I can give to that person? But as a leader, I've learned that your job is not to solve problems. Your job is to listen, and listen actively, to empathize, and to empower. So in other words, providing coaching means to provide the tools, knowledge, and opportunity that your people need to succeed, and also oftentimes automatically to enable them to achieve the things that they thought were impossible. And all these activities require time and investment, and if you are used to coding, or because I was so used to coding and producing results and seeing the very quick feedback loop, I found that this is something that I actually had to change my mindset about. These things and these activities require investment, and the feedback loop is not as quick, but it's totally worth it, because listening actively, having empathy, providing coaching, and being generous with my time goes a long way in creating trust, and trust is really important in any environment, and fostering an environment that enables people to do their best. And the next strategy that I have is that we need to be consistently learning. Technology is always changing and advancing. So as I mentioned before, there are so many new technology that pop up recently, and even right now, I don't know what are all the JavaScript framework that's out there. So it's always changing and it's always advancing. And being a leader in technology means that you are a leader of a specific function. So to give you a simple example, if you are a marketing manager, you know about the channel of distribution and marketing trend, but you might not necessarily be managing a social media channel. And likewise, if you are a financial manager, you know about the cash flow and profit and loss statement, but you don't necessarily need to be approving every expense or doing the balance sheet every month. And as a technology leader, likewise, you need to know about all the technology trends and things like that, but you don't necessarily need to be there to code or do the work yourself. But you still need to know. So the things that I find that you need to know as a technology leader are the company technology stack, what are the things that other people are using, what's in the market, and things like that. So staying curious is very important in this role, and to keep in touch with the technology. So how do I stay curious? I stay curious by always listening and always having this desire to learn. So if someone mentioned about tree shaking, I didn't know what it was, but then I make a point to go and check what it is about and read up a little bit about it and what are the benefits that it brings and things like that. And I also do this by attending industry events and conferences like this one, read publication and talk and learn from the specialists. The other good thing that I also try to do is I also try to learn through my people as much as I can. And it's a really good thing for a leader because it helps create a trusting relationship and empower your people as they can see that you are interested in what they are doing. To me, realizing that you may not know everything, but we can always expand our knowledge, and if we have the willingness to learn, is very powerful. And as a technology leader, I find that learning by myself is not enough. Even if I can learn everything and if I have got the mindset of learning, it's not enough. I need to foster continuous learning and improvement for my people. And because I'm only as good as my team. I may have all the knowledge and I have learned everything, but if my team don't have the same knowledge or the same understanding, then I'm nothing. So I do this by facilitating knowledge sharing. And I find that when we facilitate knowledge sharing, or when I facilitate knowledge sharing, everyone in the team learns and grows, and everyone becomes more adaptable, which is very important characteristic to have in this industry. And last but not least, as I mentioned before, nobody was born coding. We are good at coding because we learn, but same with anything else, things are changing, technology is changing, and if you have the growth mindset and if you believe that you can learn anything, then you'll be okay. So be consistently learning, and this is one of the strategies that or principles that I've applied in my leadership journey. And the last strategy that I've applied is that I lead by example. So what do I mean by leading by example? So leading by example doesn't mean doing the hands-on work for your people, because let's face it, when you become a technical leader, you are probably not the most technical person in the room. When you have a meeting with people like architects, senior developer, and other technical people, you are most likely the least technical. So you can't lead by example by doing the coding or solving problem for people. However, I find that leaders who practice ethical and responsible behavior are likely to inspire others to do the same. So you need to think about what are the things that you would like your team member to do. Do you want them to be responsible, accountable, and solve problems? Or do you want them to get permission from you or upper management before they do something? And as for me, the first and the foremost thing that I like my team member to have or do is to have a strong work ethic. And it may sound quite simple, but there are some things that I really believe that a person should have, and it doesn't require any talent. One of them is having a strong work ethic. And I would also like to help my team member or enable my team member to make and own their decision. So when there's a problem or when there's something that they are not necessarily sure about, I'm happy for them to support them and ask them to make their decision and own their decision. I don't mind if they make a mistake and they fail, or if they do something wrong, as long as it's not a life and death situation, because when you make and when you own your decision, you are more empowered to achieve more, and you are more empowered to learn faster, because you know that this is the responsibility that you have. You can make this decision, and whether you fail or not, it's not going to be an issue as long as you learn something. And the reason why I like to encourage this behavior is because I like people to bring solution and not just problem. When you are a leader and when you start solving problem for other people, people might start expecting you to solve everything for them, and that's not good. That's not good because you become the bottleneck and people around you cannot make decisions. So what I like to encourage every leader to do is to empower your people to bring solution, not just problem. So it's okay for them to come to you with like, okay, there's this problem in this area in the code base, or we are not scaling fast enough, or things like that. But I always ask them by bringing up this question. So what do you think you would do? And what's the right approach? And we can talk about it, and I can provide guidance, but they need to own their decision, and they also need to bring solution and not just problem. And like I said before, this come up a lot, always be learning. You need to always be learning, especially in the technology industry. A lot of things are changing, and I was writing an article about the future of technology and software development, and in maybe like 20 years, we might not need developer anymore. And this sounds a bit scary, but that doesn't mean that we won't have job anymore. It's just that we will need people who are more collaborative, who can solve problems, who can come up with creative solutions, rather than someone who implement ticket or Jira ticket, because I work for Atlassian, who just take Jira ticket from the Kanban board and solve these. It's more than that. So developers are not going to be just people who write code. And I can see that a lot of you here are not like that, but I just want to emphasize that it's really important to always be learning and always be willing to change and always be the person who is willing to do more than implementing tests. So I lead by example through my behavior and by following these 4 principles. Strong work ethic, make an own decision, bring solution, not problem, and always be learning. And I do this because I hope that this will inspire my team to do the same. Because I truly believe that leadership is not about a position or title. Just because you have a manager in your title or a team lead doesn't mean you are better than the other person. It's just that we all have different roles in life and we play that role. And if you want to create a team that works together, that is collaborative and engaging, then you need to show and lead by example. Because leadership is not a position or a title, but action and example. So just in case you're wondering if my life is all sunshine and roses, I'm so happy, or whether I'm really happy because I mentioned that I like to code and I took great pleasure in creating stuff. So how did I find joy? So I would like to touch a little bit on how I found joy when I became an engineering leader. So what I really realized is fundamentally it's a human nature that we want to do things that we are good at because it gives us joy and satisfaction. I have a daughter who is 6 years old, and some of the things that she does, she likes gymnastics because she's good at it. But how did she get good at it? She wasn't born like doing gymnastics in my tummy when she came out of my tummy, but she is good at it because she practiced, and that gives her joy and satisfaction because she knows that she's good at it. And likewise, I enjoy coding because I was good at it. I used to spend I used to work 9 to 5, and when I get home, I continue working until 12 or 2 a.m. in the morning sometimes. That was before kids. So as I try to, so the thing that I'm trying to say is that when you take time and when you practice enough, you get good at something, anything. And as I try to become better in my role as an engineering leader, I was able to find happiness in my job. So even though I'm not creating or I'm not actively coding, I can see that my team is improving and everyone is learning, and this gives me joy and satisfaction. And my value and some of my strengths, such as curiosity, learning agility, and wanting to be good at what I do, serve me well. And I found that the better leader that I become and the more confident in my ability as a leader, the more satisfying and rewarding my job becomes. So if you are thinking of becoming a leader, I like to advise you to do it, but also keep at it. Don't stop after 1 year, or don't stop after a few months because you think, oh, this is too hard, and I go back to coding because it's easier. Because as with anything, you need to put in the effort, give a bit of time, and you might see setback and you might see challenges, but you can overcome them if you practice enough, and if you continue doing, and if you continue trying to improve yourself. And someone once said to me really interesting thing. So she said, do you think confidence is inborn or acquired? And I think it is acquired. So it's acquired because I think you gain more confidence as you do certain things more often, you practice enough, and you take more action. So if you want to be a leader, and if you want to be a confident leader, then you need to do enough practice. And it's the same with anything else. Coding, when you first started coding in a different language, you might not know a lot, and you might find a lot of errors and setbacks and things like that. But the more you do it, the better you get at it, and leadership is no different. And I also realized that I don't need to know every technology or provide solution to every problem. So my job as a leader is to empower people and to give them resources so that they can navigate through problems themselves and come up with solutions themselves. So for example, this morning I'm here speaking at a conference, and I have a team in the office who is doing work. And I don't need to worry about what they are doing, or whether they are doing their work, or whether they are in the office, because I trust that they will do their best work because I provide them with the environment that they can succeed in. And just in case you're wondering, it's not all sunshine and roses every day for me now, even though when I say I enjoy my job. I have days when I need to deal with a low-performing team member or a project that don't go necessarily the way that it should. So when I first started my role as a team lead, when I have a low-performing team member, I don't like it. Like, you have to deal with a lot of stuff and you need to talk to people, but remember that just because someone is low-performing doesn't mean they are a bad person. It's just that maybe they don't understand what's required for the role, or they don't have the skills or things like that. So you can always walk through these things. And most of the time, I like to assume that everyone is good, everyone wants to do their good job. And your job as a leader is to guide them through. So even these days, even when I have days when I feel like, oh, this person is not doing what he's supposed to do, or the project is not going the way that it should, I don't stress out, or I try not to stress out, because I understand that these are all part of the job, and regardless of what role or what job you have, like whether you are a developer, a team lead, or a senior management, or a CEO, or whatever, everyone has challenges in their role. And the main thing is about how you see these challenges and how you overcome them. And here, like I said, these are all part of the job, and in life and in your work, you will have challenges, but it's not about having all the solution. It's about your mindset, how you look at things, what's your perspective, and what you do to overcome with every setback. And if I look back at my career, the leader who has the most impact to me were the one who empower me to think for myself and do the right thing even when they are not around. So usually you might think that, or as parents, we think that we can protect our children, and with leader, like you want to do the best for your people and you want to protect them so they can always succeed. But I found that it's not always the right way. So the right way is when you empower people to think for themselves and to do the right thing. And so this is what I do with my team. And when we do this right, we have the pleasure of leading high-performing team who are very collaborative, who are not afraid to make mistakes, who understand each other and who help each other out. And as a leader, that's your ultimate goal, not to have a manager in your job title or get more pay or anything, but to create a team who are high-performing, who are collaborative, and who are engaging. So to give you a summary of all the strategies that I talk about, there are 4 of them. First, to seek first to understand. So understand your responsibility, what you are required to do in your new role. And someone once asked me, like, I'm a CTO, but I'm a CTO as a startup company. And my job, and you said people management is about empowering people, but my job required me to code like 20% of the time. And what's your advice? And I said, if that's your responsibility, yes, you have to do it, and you have to find a balance. Like, I'm not saying that there's one set of leadership style or one set of technical leadership that works for everybody, but you need to seek first to understand what's required for your role, what are your strengths and weaknesses, what is your leadership style, what is the style that you want to approach or adapt. So for example, there are 4 types of like technical leadership styles. Some leaders are very directive, and to be directive, they need to stay hands-on coding because they need to help their team members solve problems. And I'm not that type of leader where I'm more about understanding the big picture and coming up with strategy and communicating this strategy. And it doesn't mean that I'm a better leader or the other person is a better leader. It's just that we have a different approach to leadership, and as long as we achieve our ultimate goal of creating a team that's high performing, then it's okay. So it's really important to understand what's the leadership style that you have, and don't try to copy from someone else. Like, don't try to copy from me either. not because I don't like people to copy from me, but it is because it might not be something that suits you. And I share some of the resources that I have a bit later, which is about finding your leadership style and your personality type and things like that. So I share the deck later. And second one is to understand that people do not equate to code. And this is about understanding that everyone has got different perspective to things. Everyone think differently, even though they may all be developer and they code in the same language. Everyone has got different preferences. And for example, introvert and extrovert. I'm an introvert, so I think introverts are cool, but I have friends who are extrovert, and they say they are not loud or they are not outspoken. It's just that they like to process their thought when they speak it out. So for them, it's also cool as well, but you need to understand that not everyone is the same, and as a leader, you need to empathize with people, listen actively, and provide the coaching that is necessary or that works best for them. So say, for example, you have 2 senior developers in the team. Just because they are senior developer doesn't mean they think the same or they have the same career, but one might think about becoming an architect because he loves technology, and the other might think about becoming a team lead because she loves to coach people. And you need to understand them in order to provide the right opportunity, right tool, and the right resources for them to succeed. And the third one is to be consistently learning. And this is really important because nobody was born knowing anything. But when you reach a certain stage, you feel so confident in your ability that you start to think, oh, maybe I have a talent in this area. No, we don't. Oh, maybe we do have talent in certain area, but I believe that anything can be learned and anything can be done. So if you set your mind to something, you can achieve anything. It might take different time for different people, so some might get better in like a few months or some might get better in a few years, but it doesn't matter because as long as you are consistently learning and you have the growth mindset, then you can get better at anything. And last but not least, lead by example. Lead by example in the way that through behavior and the action that you want your team member to follow. So inspire them with action rather than words. And again, I say this because this is the type of leadership style, but I don't try to force it or I don't try to think in this way. I'm just sharing my experience and you can take it or leave it, but most importantly, you need to find what works for you and what works for your team and what is the environment that you want to create for your people and lead by example through that. So before I end, I like to leave some time for question and answer because I usually find that I talk too much and people don't have a chance to ask questions. So we have about 15 minutes to ask questions. So let me leave you with my favorite picture that perfectly sums up the type of leadership or engineering leader that I aspire to be, and this quote on leadership by John Maxwell. And John Maxwell is a very popular American author and speaker on leadership, and you can Google him, and I share links later. He said that a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So he didn't say that a leader is one who actually do everything for their people, and this is very important to remember. So thank you all for listening and being so engaged even after the night of boat cruise. I wasn't there, so I didn't know how long it went, but thank you all for being here and also listening actively. You were all awesome. And if you are interested in hearing more about my thoughts or some of the things that I've put up and I elaborated more, you can check out my writing on Mediums, and I write regularly on topics such as career, leadership, and diversity and inclusion. And I've also recently published a book called ReadMe.md for software developer. And in this book, I share about practical advice and useful tips on how to help you succeed in the software development industry. So regardless of whether you are a developer or whether you are a team lead or whether you are looking to take a slightly different technical role like DevOps or whatever, I hope that this book will help you in doing what you need to do. And I also have a special chapter in Women in Technology because I think it's a very important topic and it deserves the awareness. So feel free to connect with me on social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, or Medium. And if you've got any questions or anything, like feel free to hit me up. I read everything. I may not answer everything, but I do read everything. So questions and answer. Who wants to ask me the first question? Yes.
So one of the challenges I've faced going from developer to team lead is that as a developer I could be focused on one task in the zone all day and the day would fly by. As team lead I'm constantly switching and being interrupted and that type of thing. Do you face that challenge?
Yes. So this is a very good question, and it comes up very often because when you are a developer, you have a very clear done state, right? You do something, you pick up a ticket or a program, or you concentrate on it, like you say, and days fly by, and at one point you are done. You can say like, oh, I finished this task. Whereas when you are a team lead, you are running around everywhere, you try to help people, you are in meetings almost all day, but there's no done state. You give feedback to someone, but it's not done. You had one-on-one, but it's not done. Do they take the feedback? Do they improve? And a lot of things has got very long feedback loop, like I mentioned before. So the way that I do it is I have a dedicated time in my calendar called balcony time, where I don't do anything, but I reflect on what is the things that I did. So I reflect on how I have helped the team and how I've helped the company achieve the goals and what I could do better the next time. So this is my way of, one, assuring myself that I'm bringing value, but also to reflect on what I can do better the next time. So yes, I find the same, but you need to set some time aside to really think about how you are performing and things like that in order to feel satisfied with your role and to do better at your job. Any question? Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions about giving feedback?
Okay. This is an important one but it's also related to understanding people. Not everyone take the feedback the same way. So some people might say, oh, be honest with me. You can say anything, but sometimes they don't actually mean that. If you start saying everything that you see, they might not like it. So I think first, before you give feedback to someone, understand where they are coming from, what is the feedback, and try to tailor it in the way that they will receive it. And receive it as in they will do something about it. So if you give feedback like, for example, oh, I wish you could come in on time for this meeting. It's a feedback, right? But they are not going to take it necessarily. So try to understand and try to explain the reason why we value your feedback and we like to know what you're working on and you do some great job and things like that. Really try to understand, but also provide them with an opportunity to ask you questions. And feedback doesn't have to be one way. You say something, they don't have to take it. Right? It's with anything. You need to understand and you need to make it a collaborative approach in order to give the best feedback. Question? Yeah.
So, in some workplaces, leadership includes HR responsibility, and other places doesn't. Which is it a problem either way, or which way is easier in your opinion?
So, what do you mean by HR responsibility? Is it like hiring and?
Management, people management. So you actually do that.
Okay. So everything that I talk about here in your words include HR responsibility, and I call that people management. But if you you are more focused on technical leadership as a tech lead without any reporting people, I think it's a different part. I think it's more like being an architect and influencing the company technology choices and things like that. And usually I'm a people leader, but I work with a lot of architects because they have the most technical knowledge and expertise. So I think it's not about which way is the best. I think it's more about what your preference is, whether you want to sway this way or that way. And for me, I find that I've been an architect, but I find more joy and satisfaction, and I feel like I make more impact as a people manager, but it might not work for you, or it might. So I think it's good that you brought this up because it allows you to think about your career path and what is the one that you want to do. Any other question? Yes.
One of the areas where I struggle with is once I become the development manager, I'm constantly struggling with sort of work-life balance, like disconnecting from the work. Previously, I used to get, a feature or a sprint kind of work and I would get it done. But now I have to, entire backlog of releases in my mind I constantly plan. I see you are doing quite well with the work-life balance, especially with kids. You are doing medium publishing and all those things. Do you have any suggestions or tips around how do you manage that?
So work-life balance is a bit related to time management, right? So for me, time management or work-life balance is not about when you do one thing or the other at what time. It's more about how you optimize the time that you have for the things that matter to you. So the way I manage it is when I'm at home, I give my full focus to my daughter and our family, and that's the way that I do it. But sometimes I might need to work from home, and that's okay as well. So work-life balance is not about being able to do everything or having a clear cut on when you do work or when you do life. It's about what's the most priority to you, what's the most important to you, and you do that and you give your full focus, and when it's finished, you try to not think about it. And I think it's a learned skill with anything. Like at first, when you become a leader, like I said before, you are never done. So you are always thinking about this person at work or this project that you have to manage, and you can never switch off. But with time and also like having dedicated some me time like I do, you think about how you are going, and that allows you to really switch off when you need to. So that would be my advice.
Do you have one-on-ones with your developers to try and get more feedback that you might not get if you're in a team meeting type of situation? Is that part of your, monthly process, quarterly process?
Okay.
Just to find out I find a lot of developers don't talk a lot. And so getting that feedback from them in a group is very difficult. I feel I'd probably get more feedback from them if I were talking to them one-on-one.
Yes, that's definitely true. You can't ask people to give feedback out in the open, right? They need to be comfortable. So to answer your question, do I have one-on-one? Yes, I do have one-on-one with my direct report, but with developer, it's more ad hoc. So I don't schedule them because they are not directly my direct report. And I want to empower my team lead to have one-on-one with them and to know them better. And I don't want to interfere with that. But I do make myself available. And if they want to talk to me on Slack or Stripe or things like that, I make myself available, and I try to attend social events. So for example, at LSE, we have some social events, and that's when they can come and talk to me. But it's not necessarily one-on-one at a fixed time in a book room, but it's more about being available and approachable to them. And yes, I do receive some feedback, or sometimes even feedback about the people who are reporting to me through them. And I don't use that against other people, but it's just for me to really understand what everyone's strengths and weaknesses and what their areas of improvement are. So I think one-on-one is very important because people can only be really open and say what they want when they are in a place that is not out in the open. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any strategies that you use with your managers?
That's interesting. So I think I'm good at managing down, but managing up, it requires some effort because But I've learned that just because someone is your manager doesn't mean they know everything, and just because that's the same. I'm someone manager doesn't mean I know everything. It's about working together and seeing where you can help them and where they can help you. So once I have this mindset, I find it easier to like set expectation. Just because someone is your manager doesn't mean you don't set expectation with them. You set expectation with them, but you also try to understand where they are coming from and work together. Because in the end, we are all human and we are working together. It's not like someone is in a higher position and they have all the say or anything like that. So that's not really a strategy, but I guess the mindset and the way of thinking and how you approach things. Any other question? Yes.
As a people manager, do you think people managers should also focus on trying to understand the software development process or improving the process of an organization rather than like class managing people, driving change to the process that people used to work? Do you think this some strategy plan?
So I guess it depends. It depends on the company that you are in. Some company have like the process improvement specialists who focus on like identifying blocker and impediment and things like that, and they improve them. But some company they require someone in the team, doesn't have to be the manager, to identify what are the things that are not going well. So for me, what I do is I tell everyone in my team that tell me if something is not working or if you think something could be done differently. Just because you are the manager doesn't mean all the process improvement has to come from you. Sometimes you might not see like some of the things that are not going well in the process for software development because you are not actively developing. So for example, if there's a problem with like continuous deployment pipeline, you are not going to know. But for the developer, it's the pain that they face every day. So they need to, that's why I say it's important that you don't just bring the problem, but also the solution. And as a manager, you need to be open to ideas and also to be curious, stay curious enough to know what are the things that are happening. So process improvement and things like that is not limited to the role of a manager, but you might do them from time to time. But the more important thing is to empower other people to think about these things and bring it to you if necessary. Yes.
As a manager, it can be quite easy to either focus downwards on your team or maybe look up. But what do you do, or is there anything specifically that you do to support your peers and other managers within?
So I think one of the things that people think is that when you become a manager, you are lonely because people below don't necessarily like you or don't necessarily want to be your friend, and people above just want to get you to do stuff. But it's actually not true. Like if you are in a company where there are a lot of peer manager, then you need to like first go out with them and socialize with them and see what are the things that they are facing. And sometimes you can learn from them as well, and you can provide advice. And in the end, you are never lonely in your job, because even though there are people reporting to you, there are still people who work for the common goals, hopefully, and people around you are even better, because once you support them and when you encourage them, they do the same. And it's not like I'm always giving or I'm always taking. It's like it always go both ways. So yeah. I think it's important to foster a very good relationship with your peer and not treat them as like your competition.
As somebody who manages software developers, you already spoke a little bit about handing off technical debt and running a projects. So as a manager of developers, how do you decide when you need to stop pushing out features and time at a time focus on technical debt? What goes into that decision, and how can I justify that as a developer to people?
Okay, so there are some tortoise sign or something that you can watch. So if you see like, the good thing with a technical manager is you were technical before, so you sort of understand like what are the things that a developer would do. So if you start seeing that things take longer to release and people are getting stressed about getting feature, and when there are so many bugs, so there are things that I measure my development team, not as in measure as in they have to reach them, but I keep track of, or I pay close attention to, which is the velocity. So how fast they are developing, and this is not because I want them to work faster. This is for me to understand like whether there's any impediment or any blocker or things like that. Also the bugs rate. So what are the bugs that they are creating? They might be able to finish feature quickly, but if they keep creating bugs or if they keep missing some edge cases, that's probably because the code base is not good enough, or it has become too legacy, for lack of a better word. So these are the things that you look at, but also in one-on-one, you also ask them like, oh, how's your day, and what's the features that you are developing, and what are the things that you are experiencing. And if you have this trusting relationship and environment, they will tell you when there are these problems. And then your job is, yes, you ask them how would they like to fix it, but also to bring it back to your manager or senior executive on how you can sell this and how this is important.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Of, you know, if you were technical, how do you, and your manager is not technical, how do you justify it to them that they need to spend some, that they need to invest some developer time in paying off technical? I mean, a technical debt is a venture where there's risk that things will go wrong and there's no immediate value in the product.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you justify being able to spend this money for apparently nothing on the surface?
So this is very, very good question, because just because I answer this doesn't mean I don't have any technical debt in my code base. So there's still some technical debt, and it's inevitable, I think. But the way that I approach the problem is, if your manager is not technical or he looks at it in a different way, try to understand what are the things that he really care about. It might be uptime, and you can frame your problem in a way that affects that. So people are more afraid of not getting something than losing something. So think about it in that way. So if this is, I think it's about, well, I hate to say it, but every day we are selling something, right? Whether it's about an idea or something. So you need to understand the key to selling something is to speak in the language that your audience understand. So see what he really care about. Is it about shipping feature or having a good company culture, or is it about like the bottom line or things like that, and try to frame your problem in a way that touches those areas. Yes.
You said you were an introvert. Do you think you can train yourself to be an extrovert?
Yes, definitely. So, okay, this is the last question, but I'm an introvert, but it's a bit weird for me to be speaking in front of people, but it's a landscape. Introvert and extrovert doesn't mean, so firstly, you need to understand what introvert and extrovert mean. It doesn't mean introvert don't like to speak to other people. It's just that we recharge and we get energy by thinking and having quiet time. And which is why I find that setting some time in my calendar for having quiet time or reflection time really energizes me. And I do like speaking to people, but I don't do it often, so I know where my limit is. So as long as you understand what are the differences and how you recharge your energy, then you can train yourself to be anything. Okay. That's all, everyone. I'm going to share this deck because I've got some books that I recommend everyone to read, and also some tech talk on leadership if you are interested, and some online links. Thank you all. Bye.